Congratulations! You've made it to the final story in the Malden Public Library's Halloween Ghost Story Special. We couldn't resist adding this one, and we're sure you'll understand why. Your Halloween bedtime ghost story is The Spirited Librarian by Jean Anderson. Enjoy! He hadn't meant to take the book from the library. He certainly hadn't meant to keep it overnight. But the poem's strange and exotic verses penned in India late in the 18th century were so fascinating, he simply slipped the slim volume off the shelf and into his pocket so he could study them more carefully. He'd intended returning the book to the shelf that day, but as so often happens, he became absorbed. Time whizzed by, and before he knew it, it was too late. The library had closed. So there he was, in his dormitory room, holding a rare and valuable work, a first edition, and worse, one from the Whitcomb Library. This priceless collection of books had been bequeathed to DePauw University by Indiana Governor James Whitcomb, who had spent a lifetime amassing it. Whitcomb, in fact, so cherished his books, he stipulated in his will that they were to be used as reference work only, and that none of them should under any conditions be removed from the library building. Occasionally one of the books would find its way out of the library, usually when a new assistant would blithely sign it out, unaware of the special restrictions put upon the Whitcomb books. But the young student knew the rules, which accounted for his apprehension now. And he had known the background of the Poems of Usheen, the book he had, quote-unquote, borrowed. He might have been a good bit more apprehensive. The poems, both mystical and mysterious, had been written in India, published in Philadelphia in 1789, passed from hand to hand, then brought in 1813 into the Indiana Territory by ox cart and flatboat as a gift for young James Whitcomb, who would one day serve Indiana as governor, and for whom the Hoosier poet, James Whitcomb Riley, would be named. Riley's father had served in the Indiana General Assembly during Whitcomb's term of office. It was now the early 1900s, so the book the student held in his hands was more than 100 years old, a dusty, yellowing, far from imposing volume. Yet the poems had lost none of their magic, and the young man sat up well past midnight, spellbound by the Indian images and messages. When at last he did retire, he tucked the book carefully under his pillow. Thoughts raced through his head in no particular pattern, and then it seemed he had no thoughts at all, as down, down he sank, deep down into sleep. Abruptly, he was yanked up out of sleep by, what was it? A knocking at the door? Lines from Edgar Allan Poe's poem The Raven flew through his head. Suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at his chamber door. At the foot of his bed hovered a spectral figure in funeral robes, a man almost as high as the ceiling, a man with bony arm outstretched, pointing straight at his pillow. "Usheen! Usheen!" the specter rasped. "Who stole Usheen?" Then, with menacing arm and clenched fist, the ghost struck out at the student, cringing in bed. Over and over again he intoned the words, eerily, chanting, "Usheen! Usheen! Who stole Usheen? Usheen! Usheen! Who stole Usheen?" The words drifted away in the night as the specter itself seemed to dissolve. Paralyzed with fright, the student shrank back against the headboard. He had actually felt the clammy, dead hand of Governor Whitcomb brush across his face. Unable to move or speak, he crouched for hours at the head of his bed, terrified that the specter might return. Finally, at day's first light, he reached under his pillow and withdrew the borrowed book. He was at the library long before it opened. The instant the door was unlocked, he raced to the desk, words tumbling out at a bewildered librarian. "Here it is! Here is Usheen!" With that, he broke down and confessed how he had slipped the book from the shelf and how the ghost of Governor Whitcomb had hovered over his bed most of the night. A day or two later, when the story was being told at one of the women's dormitories, a young girl leapt up. "When," she gasped, "does the library close?" When told at 5 p.m., she whirled out of the room, shouting, "I still have 15 minutes!" She, too, had borrowed one of the Whitcomb books. In the old days, that is, before 1956, when DePauw opened its spanking new library, librarians didn't worry very much about the Whitcomb collection. If one of the books was missing, they knew the spirited librarian would see that it was soon returned to its rightful place. There haven't been stories recently of books missing from the Whitcomb collection, or of the governor's ghostly midnight walks. Still, that isn't to say the old man won't walk again, should someone decide to borrow a book. Thank you so much for joining us for our special Halloween Ghost Story series. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you sleep well. And from all of us at the Malden Public Library, stay safe, don't forget to vote, we love you.